Hi, I'm Bob Magnuson from ReedWorks, and in today's video podcast, I want to talk about the power of uniqueness. What is unique? How do you become unique? What does it take to create unique? Unique doesn't necessarily mean different. Let me explain. To me, being unique is being creative enough to see how I can increase my value to my client in ways that nobody else sees. A good example of this is a great player that was named George Marge. And early on in my career, he was an idol to me because he lived a few towns away from me, and my college professor teacher knew him very well, and he was a famous woodwind doubler. He was not a virtuoso, but he was a get-the-job-done kind of musician. The thing that was unique about him is he played not only all the saxophones, all the clarinets, oboe, English horn, flutes, piccolos. He played bamboo flutes, tin whistles, ocarinas, odd instruments that not a lot of other people played. I remember being on a session with George Marge where the call was for 7 flute players. And this was before synthesizers took over and imitated instruments as much as they do now, way before sampling. So 7 flute players show up with just their flute. We all play the date. There's some very famous people in the room. I was amazed to be there. At the end of the date, George sat there a little bit. I tried to talk with him, and I realized he was kind of killing time and leaving very slowly. And then as the composer walked in, he said, "Hey, I have a bunch of other instruments. Would you like to hear these textures, these sounds that might go with the track?" The composer's delighted. What does he know? He's a jingle composer. He's not composing for the New York Philharmonic. He wants to get sounds and resources from any place he can to help his sound. George takes out a tenor recorder, takes out a bamboo flute, a tin whistle, an ocarina, and he just starts playing a few notes, just to give the client the color of these instruments. Don't overwhelm the client. The client says, "Let me hear it on that thing." And he goes, "Oh, the tenor recorder." He goes, "Open a track." George sat there and played the tenor recorder on top of 7 flutes, and it sounded amazing. And in that moment, I gained that tip from George Marge to this day that I'm ever so grateful for, which is thinking what we call outside the box now. So from that point on, when I saw him do that, I started bringing extra instruments to any sessions I was called on. Then as the 90s came in and synthesizers were just really in their flow here and replacing musicians, a lot of times instead of having 4 horns, it would just be trumpet and a saxophone. So I would bring a soprano, an alto, my tenor, whatever was called for, maybe an alto flute, a bass clarinet. And I would play the session, and afterwards I'd say, "Hey, I got a couple of things. You want to hear anything?" "Hey, yeah, let me hear the bass clarinet with the bass over here." Or, "Do you have a clarinet? Play it with the cellos." So I learned to bring other instruments. And just like when George Marge was called, he was never called to be a woodwind player. He was called to be George Marge. And that's what I understood. So in my own career, I developed over time from being just another saxophone player and good doubler to becoming Get Me Bob Magnuson. At this point in my career, my uniqueness is more developed now on taking organic woodwinds, using electronic plugins, and creating sound textures that are unique and truly their own instruments. I love to collaborate with people on a creative level at this point, interjecting these files into a project and seeing what they think, trying to create a sound together, a texture. I do ambient music, new age music, things for film scores where they want certain ambivalent sounds. Unique. What is your unique? How do you find it? How do you create it? I can help you find your unique. It's an ongoing journey, a process. But bigger than ever, it's a personal vision of seeing where you can fit into this amazing world of sound and music and collaboration and instant connection with people. It's endless.